Hey, everybody, this is Thursday, April 8th. It's the Prove It Live podcast. My name is Dr. Kevin McGovern. I'm here with my two esteemed colleagues, Mike Frary and Ryan Gagne. And today is believe it or not, our 18th episode, and got a lot of good stuff for you today. So without further ado, I will turn it over to my esteemed colleague, Mike Frary.
Hello, everybody. Welcome to the Prove It Live podcast. This is Mike Frary from the Farm Baseball Performance Institute. And in the spirit of redundancy, here with Dr. Kevin McGovern, and Ryan Gagne. And
we like redundancy in case someone tuned in late.
That's a good point. That's a fair point.
Yeah.
Should we do it again? Or no, move on.
Well, remember how like TBS years ago used to start stuff at 6:05 in case
That's
right. So in case people turn in late, So yeah.
That's interesting.
Yeah.
It's also like when you watch those shows when they come back from commercial, like they give you the last 5 minutes they ended with. But...
Right. That's what we're doing. We're trendsetters.
So professional. All right. So we want to jump off right at the top of the order. Full disclosure, I'm going to bring little to this conversation, but I'm going to try to chime in.
Thank God.
We're going to talk about a little bit about the Masters. And we'll get a little bit into the first week of, we obviously have the first week of baseball behind us. Lots of things happened. Some teams that were thought to look, were going to be solid from the gate, look bad, and vice versa. And we have a big injury to talk about. So anyway, boys, I'll let you take it away. The Masters, what are we even talking about?
So, Mike, you might not know the Masters is a golf tournament that's actually taking place in Georgia. We won't even go down that avenue, but
Augusta, Georgia.
So the Masters is obviously for me one of the best golf tournaments because it's member owned, meaning it's put on by the members of the club, and it is a privilege to be there. You have to be invited. You have to have a certain world ranking to have won previously. To I think top 24 finishers from the year before. And it's goes on and on with very little commercial interruption, and it's just a tradition of it. What do you think, Ryan? I think it's the best golf tournament, better than best major by far.
It's hands down the best golf tournament. I mean, I know Mike's going to laugh at this. I'd put it up there. This is one of the top 4 or 5 professional sporting events.
Yeah, that's what I'm talking about. It's certainly the Super Bowl of golf. We'll tell you that.
It has to be a sport to be a sporting event. But
here we go.
There we go. Yeah. Always the contrarian.
Yes.
No. You just to remind you, there's some criteria that must make something that will make something a sport. One of the easiest ones that there has to be a defense trying to stop what you're doing, right?
The course is the defense.
It's not a defense. That's like basketball players without defense. And you can say, the hoop is the defense. Yeah, that would really stop them. I mean, come on, that's so silly. Like you have to have a defense trying to prevent what you're doing. So if there were an offense and defensive line and people come to try to block that drive or shot, then yeah, you totally got an argument. But or if when you hit it, there's like another team down and they head it back and you got to hit it over them. I don't know. But I mean, it's and by the way, golf's great. I don't even hate golf. I enjoy golfing, but it's just not a sport. It's a game. It's like darts.
Oh, all right. Okay.
Very similar. Because the dartboard's the defense.
Oh, I gotcha. Okay.
Right.
All right.
Well, I don't know. You could argue there that the way your opponent throws the darts to try to strategically block something, you could argue that that's defense.
Probably closer to a sport than golf. I agree with you.
Oh my goodness. Well, anyway, I believe golf is a sport.
The top professional sporting events out there,
right?
That people enjoy watching, pay to see, that sort of thing.
And I can tell you, it's Sunday afternoon at 4:00. It will be the highest rated sporting event by far in the month of April and probably May and June.
And the demographic of old fat white people, right?
All right,
right up your alley.
Yeah, it should be right up your alley. Well, the other sporting event. I mean, the good thing we could talk about. There are actually people there. So there are fans in Augusta this week, and there are also fans at the other sporting event that's happening this weekend, which is, I believe, it's the 38th version or 39th version of Wrestlemania, which will be over 2 nights at Raymond James Stadium which is outdoors, with fans, not to capacity, but there will certainly be fans, which is a pleasure to hear and see. I can tell you, if they're watching, basically the NCAA championship with little or no fanfare, even the cardboard cutouts, which I think was ridiculous. And I believe for watching the Masters, Bubba Watson may have just holed the ball from the fairway. Nice.
He held it?
Hold. Right in. Like, from
HOLED. I got you.
Yeah.
Nice.
Or it could have went in the bunker. I don't know. But, yeah, I'm not there. But those are the big things I think that are going on this weekend.
So where are when did the Masters start?
It just
Today.
with
3 hours ago.
3 hours
okay.
ago.
All right.
So,
And it's going to go through to Sunday, correct?
Sunday, yeah. About 7 o'clock.
Yeah. All right. I'll get my DVR set.
Get that set and get that ready to go, and you can watch that. But
so out of the three of us here, right? I mean, Kevin, I think you're really the only one who's into like wrestling at this point, right? I mean, I used to be in wrestling. I have nothing against it. I just
used to
stopped
be
watching.
Not several years.
But I became a grown up.
Yeah, well, I mean, I'm a kind of a grown up, but as you guys both know, I've done some work for the WWE, and actually a couple years ago, I was actually in part of the. I had to.
You had a role.
I had to deliver some medical attention to one of the Diva wrestlers. Yes, we'll say that. Yes. So
you actually got into the action. You got on TV and everything, and I remember.
Yes, I believe it was a pay-per-view. So I heard from a few people when it was replayed.
Can you talk about that story, about what happened, about how you almost blew it on live TV?
Yeah, I mean, I guess it's pretty well known now that some of wrestling is scripted. I would people some. Yes. So, I wouldn't, obviously there's no way I can say that, being thrown from a 30-foot high steel cage through a table is, quote unquote, what people say fake, because that means it didn't happen. It does happen. They just, essentially know how to fall and all that kind of stuff. But yes, I had to, I was, coming down, there was was in the, Boston Garden, and there were it was a big event because it was the first time the women were going to be in the main event in the pay-per-view in a steel cage, or just in the main event period. Now the women since that time have a whole pay-per-view show just dedicated to the Divas. And when during rehearsals I had to put a neck collar on one of the Diva wrestlers, but her hair was tied up and she was laying on the mat, and it was Velcro, very simple, bing, boom, and out of there. So right before I went down, the referee's back there. He's got an earpiece, and they let you know when it's time to go down the aisle. And as I was right before that happened, Vince McMahon, who I've been doing work 7 or 8 years and have passed by his office, but I've never actually been like face to face with Vince McMahon. He came by and said, "Good luck." So now I'm starting to sweat profusely, right? So as we go down the aisle, I get there, and the Diva wrestler is not only lying on the mat where she's supposed to, but her hair is no longer tied up, as we know, and it's now lying all on the television cords, and there are aplenty. So now I have to lift this woman's extensions up, slide a Velcro collar past her hair, and underneath the so I don't get the TV wires caught, and that didn't go so well, because I did actually catch one of the wires in the neck brace, but people, she was jumped off the table and was hitting people, so she kind of saved it, because it didn't look all that bad, even looking at the replay. But that could have been my worst embarrassment ever. But yes, so I do have a soft spot in my heart for a little wrestling every once in a while.
Yep, I actually enjoyed it for a long time. All right, last thing, we got the first week of baseball behind us.
Not without a big notable injury.
Right. So let's talk a little bit about that. So. Tatis Jr. and Ryan, can you give the exact injury?
Yeah, he has a shoulder subluxation, which Kevin can expound upon in a moment. It's partial dislocation of the joint. Yeah.
Wow.
It's his left shoulder, which has apparently given him some problems in the past. Showed a slight labrum tear, but they are saying that it's non-surgical. They're trying to have him back in just a couple weeks. I can't imagine that would be the case. And again, I'll let Kevin kind of.
If that's a full dislocation, there's not a chance, right?
Well, so basically for those playing at home, a dislocation affects the labrum of the joint. So there's 2 labrums in the body. Well, 4 labrums in the body, each shoulder and each hip. So, the hip and the shoulder are ball and socket joint, and just exactly what it is. We've got the head of your humerus or hip is the ball, and attaches into the socket. The immediately connective tissue that essentially the first line of defense that holds that ball into place is your labrum. Okay, and when you sublux something, that's a politically correct term for slightly dislocating, but it's kind of like I have a slight ACL tear. Something in that labrum had to have moved, stretched, torn for the ball of that shoulder to come out. Now, I didn't see the swing, but he's a right hand. If it's his left shoulder, right hand hitter, he probably went into extreme external rotation, and boom, out this thing pops. Okay. That part of the connective tissue it doesn't necessarily regenerate. Okay, it's just once it's stretched, it's stretched. Okay, so you have to be looking at now. Obviously, you don't want that shoulder back in that position again. Is that going to change how he swings? Okay, he's a shortstop, right? Diving out for an outstretched arm. All of those head first sliding, all of those now become very, very risky athletic moves moving forward, because like I tell everyone, you're built once right. After that, we've got to make changes or whatever, so you're able to do that. But when you're playing shortstop for a Major League Baseball team and the ball is hit and you've got to dive for it, you're not thinking, gee, should I dive, should I? And you can see how violent.
Yeah, wow.
God, that looks bad.
So for people just listening, Ryan just played the video.
Wow,
and look, one of the things is, obviously this guy swings extremely hard. He's got one of the higher exit velos in baseball. Just a phenomenal athlete.
Yeah, I was going to say, Ryan, can you freeze that at the time of, like, you'll see this, boom. So there, next frame, if we can do this. I mean, you're going to see that in extreme,
right there.
So right there. So that,
and
he's in extreme external rotation, which is, the rotation of your shoulder. It's way behind his head. Plus we've got, I don't know, what do these guys use? 34, 32 ounce bats that are, not only is it that way, but the bat and the gravity is forcing it back even further with the momentum of the bat. This does not look good. So, again, you'll hear people have had what's called a SLAP tear, SLAP. That stands for superior, labrum, blah, 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 right? I don't even know what the heck they think slaps. But anyway, the labrum is one of the most difficult things of the shoulder to fix.
Because it's mostly, isn't it like cartilage type material?
It's cartilage, and once that is torn in a thrower, it's not good. It's not good. The surgery is brutal.
Superior labrum, anterior, posterior.
Yeah. So I've got a motocross patient who, of course, went over a jump and, got dislocated from his bike and has this, and it's just
probably trying to hang on.
Fell on an outstretched arm. It's bad. It's bad. Not that it necessarily can't be repaired. You have full motion. Do you want to be diving on that arm again and going? No. I mean, it's that. No, so you've lost that. I just watched the Yankee game last week. They had 3 guys slide head first in the home plate last night. That you don't want to be doing that.
I know of at least
$340 million, right?
That tore his. I know at least one athlete that actually tore his labrum from diving head first.
Right.
I know another one that did it as a third baseman, diving for a ball. So yeah, it's I guess like anything else, it's almost always at risk, right? For just with some of the movements and motions that we perform, right? And it's too bad because Tatis is he's really fun to watch. I love watching him hit. I love watching him play.
But now he's come out of 2 games this year already, because he came out of spring training. He threw a ball in the hole to first base and bounced it and came out with a right shoulder strain. Now we've got a left shoulder dislocation, and whoever they insured his contract with are now starting to sweat.
Right. Well, he just, what's you had his contract there, Ryan, too, I think, right?
$340 million.
Yeah. So, Is there anything that you could do to prevent something like that? A, and then B, if this is a full dislocation, wouldn't it? Let's say, for instance, let's go this one first. I think this is more interesting to talk about. If they rush him back, are they not putting him in greater jeopardy to hurt that again?
1,000%.
More quickly? Yeah.
1,000%. This is like this for him, considering, I mean, there's a lot of things you got to consider. His age, he's young, right? The money, right? It's walking on eggshells. I mean, he's going to get that money's guaranteed, right?
Yeah.
He's going to need to gingerly walk back, because why would you rush him?
Right.
I mean, so they're saying he's back in 10 days. To me, or what they say, is it 10 days or 2 weeks?
They're hoping for as little as 10 days.
Crazy.
I mean, that seems very aggressive. To me, why rush it? You know what I mean? I mean, it's
They're just asking for more trouble if you do that. That's just not. But but I also get it.
Deal.
Yeah. They also.
Yeah. It's just yeah.
But I'm sure that they also want to make sure that the fans know that, like, okay, hey, he's not out for the season. This isn't, career ending or anything like that. So I think part of
100%
probably has to root really with, public relations, etc. But
all of that goes into play.
Kev, quick question for you. So they say that right now it's not, surgery won't be required. Would they be likely to do a surgery in the off season? And if so, what's the recovery kind of time frame?
Is there a surgery? I don't think there is a surgery.
Well, it's that slap. I mean,
yeah.
So basically, think of this: the glove or whatever layman's terms you want to use has been stretched, right? So it's all going to go by with the labrum we go by. Do we have a painful arc? Meaning, if I move someplace, do I get a clunk? Do I get it gets stuck? My guess is that's not going to happen in an elite athlete like that. He's going to be rehabbed, but it's just going to be like, what does the next thing look like? And hopefully that, is in his mind going to be like, I can't swing that hard, because right when I get back there, I get this picture. My brain now has a picture of what happened, right? Because your brain doesn't want to injure itself. It wants to protect you. So does that slow his bat speed down? Does that, make him a step slower because he doesn't want to dive? There's a whole mental aspect, which kind of, parlays into what we, had learned last week. There's a mental picture of injury. Like, does the body want to get into that position? Is his shoulder going to hold on? Yeah, right. I'm sure that we're not talking about surgery in that case. It's just a matter of what has that injury now done to his overall athleticism, his tentativeness. Is he going to be tentative? I don't know. I mean, I've blown my ACL. That's painful. I can't imagine what dislocating the shoulder will be with that kind of violent swing. The brain doesn't want that to happen again. So what does that do? That's the kick.
All right, good stuff. Obviously, we'll keep an eye on Tatis Jr. Tatis. Okay, so I want to get into sort of our main topic. So last week's episode I thought was an awesome episode. Obviously, I'm a little biased, but
mind blowing. Mind blowing.
It was great. Jeff is great, and I've known Jeff for a long time, but he really delivered. That was, he's a good guy. He's like, a regular dude. So we don't often talk so technically, but so it was great to hear him, and he really came prepared. So we want to have him back. He is going to come back. We're going to have him again, and but we also thought, like, we all have lots of experience in this regard, and as I said, you could see why I wanted to bring Jeff in and work with my athletes, and we had some situations just recently with some of our players. And, as the season begins, and here in Massachusetts, the high school season has not yet technically begun. They pushed everything back a month. It's supposed to start March 26th or somewhere around that time. But anyway, look, a big part of our game, the game of baseball, the game of softball, is confidence. And on the opposite side of that, anxiety and anxiousness, right? And this is a game where, as we know, I know it's been said, so often. We beat a dead horse about it, but it's true. It's that we fail so more, a lot more than we succeed. And it's not just hitting, right? When a pitcher's pitching, he's not looking at the higher level. He's not looking just to throw a strike. You're trying to hit a spot. If you're throwing your breaking balls, you want it to be sharp. You want it to have some depth, right? You're not going to get that every pitch. You're going to throw a flat breaking ball. You're going to miss your spot on your fastball. That's a failure, right? It's a mini failure. So you have to have, we talk about it all the time. You have to have a short memory, of course. But it's not that simple. It's not that simple having a short memory, because the other thing with baseball and softball is if I'm up there to bat with the bases loaded and a tie game, say, or whatever, and I strike out, let's say it's the third inning, I get to dwell on that while I'm out in the field. If that's the third out, I go out in the defense and play in center field, and I can't get that out of my head. That big moment, I can't believe I missed that pitch. How did I miss that pitch? I didn't come through. I let my teammates down. If it's a sport like basketball, for instance, right? You miss a shot, right? Even if it's a big shot, you don't have time to think. You got to get back on defense. The pace of the game almost takes care of that for you. And in baseball and softball, there's a lot of time in between. You're going to have another opportunity. You're going to as well. So it's in those moments. It's in those big gaps. And I'll give you an example of this in a minute. But it's in all of those that not even downtime. It's just where you're not performing that action that your brain can really mess with you, right? And it can really crush your confidence. And there was a stat, and this was true. This is an older one. This is probably about 3 years ago. But I remember they did a study on this, that between pitches, there's approximately 15 seconds between each pitch during the regular season in baseball. In the World Series, that time span doubled to 30, right? And that's because every pitch was so important. It meant that much more. And so, they're working that out psychologically. You have to have confidence, even though you're going to fail more than you succeed. You have to go up there with confidence. You have to know every single time that you're going to beat the pitcher. But it's easier said than done. And the kids, I think, what Jeff was talking about is this anxiousness, this anxiety, and as that stat that I gave you, which is not really a stat, it's fake, but the point was that the swing and misses, if there's 5,000 of them, 4,999 are early. That's because they're so anxious, they're so afraid they're going to miss the ball that they end up swinging and missing early. Like they manifest their failure in their head because of their anxiety. So what's that mean? And for me, it means that once our season begins, and I recommend this to a lot of coaches. I know coaches that do this. We spend so much time in the offseason. All we're focused on is the player's development, right? And getting that player better and teaching them the proper movements, fundamentals, mechanics, etc. Once we get outside to start playing, it's almost as if we're not even coaching, especially for the younger kids. I'm coaching confidence almost more than I'm coaching baseball. Right. And it's to keep them up and to lead by example, to show them that, so what, next pitch. That's one of our phrases. So what, next pitch. We're on to the next one. You missed that, on to the next one. You made a bad play, on to the next one. And to always win that next pitch. But again, it's something that we try to teach. I think Jeff obviously does a good job of doing that as well. But anyway, that was really my takeaway from Jeff. And I couldn't stop thinking about it while he was talking of like how much it relates to what we see on the field. Because I think he was talking, Kevin, sort of about kids in general, right? I mean, he works with a ton of college teams. But he also works with, just regular students as well. And, but yeah, anyway, you can see the effect directly on the baseball field. And it's something that we work on every day.
Yeah. Now, how do you deal with the, because you train elite athletes, elite players. How do you deal with the inter-team competition? Meaning, you've got in your 17U team, I'm assuming you've got 3, 4, 5, maybe 7 guys that are going to play, upper college level baseball. How do you deal with the the failure of because as much as baseball is a team sport, everything now seems to be an individual sport too. Because if little Johnny didn't do this, or he had the most glaring thing I remember him saying last week was about a parent apologizing or saying sorry to another parent because the kid got into some different school, and it wasn't like, oh, I'm sorry to hear that. What?
Right.
I mean, that just was like, that blew my mind.
Right. Well, there's 2 ways to answer that. The first one is we do see it. We do see there are kids, on our upper echelon team. We have a player he's going to be a professional player. He's got the potential to be a big league player. I mean, he's that skilled. He's got all the tools. He checks all the boxes. And all the other kids know that. And there's a couple kids who it actually helps them, because it's like that's the rabbit that they're chasing, is to try to catch up to him. But there's others that have a hard time dealing with the attention he gets, and not just from me, but from if there's scouts showing up to see him, and
right.
And look, one of the kids that has struggled with, he's doing way better now, but that he was struggling with it is like a D1 talent in his own right. So it's not like he's some bad player,
right?
A really good player. The other thing I'll say about that is, like, I think that's what, for the most part, let me say this before I move on, is that for the most part, there's camaraderie, and they help push each other. And they're really close knit. And Ryan's shaking his head; he sees it. They're a really close knit group. But that's one of the reasons why you want to get a group of kids early and train them, versus like some other programs will just
pick and choose from all over.
Yeah, the already polished kids and take them. And I've seen big issues on teams like that.
Those are those elite travel programs you've talked about before, right? That are just kind of tournament teams or whatever.
Yeah. They're all called the same thing, but they all operate way differently. You know what I mean? Okay. And so, but that's a really good question. A good question to ask, because you do see that. You do see both sides. And, we always encourage to, like, hey, look, learn from that player. Learn from him, and look at we used to have these T-shirts, and you'll appreciate it because it was a Derek Jeter quote on the back. So on our farm shirts on the back, there's a Derek Jeter quote, and it says, like, there's always going to be players who are more skilled and more talented than you, but there's never an excuse for anyone working harder than you. And that's the approach that we want to teach, is that there are going to be varying levels. It doesn't matter. Look at professional baseball with all the affiliated teams and the independent leagues and then the majors. There's hundreds and hundreds of players at all different levels, and everybody is, like, they're playing at a real high level, and they're to be commended for that. But yeah. So that said, it's really, I think it's important for us to try to get the message out to, the people, the parents, for instance, like, on how the way I look at it is this: the kids today that Jeff talked about, it's a plate, right? And you put some crap on it, right? Some stuff's going to cause anxiety. Maybe it's the stresses of school. It's getting into this great college. It's, all the other things that they hear in the news between global, climate change, and then, the opioid addiction, all this stuff, right? That just heaps and heaps and stuff. And so as coaches and parents, we want to make sure that we're not adding to that heap, that we're pulling away. We're taking things off the plate. That's so important. And look, everybody has the best intention.
That's a good point. Right. That's a good point. Especially with social media, it's magnified to no end compared to when you and I, all three of us were kids. Absolutely.
Uber magnified. And that's the thing, that they're on social media, and I see them. They're like, all they see is these kids. And look, what is a kid going to post a video of himself striking out looking with the bases loaded? No. So you're going to see his hits. You're going to see his successes. And so they see that all the time, and they're going, geez, but they're not seeing that kid is probably, he's no better than you are. He's just showing you his best moments. And so that's more stuff on the heap. Right. And so, it is important that we're making, trying to take away from that pile. And sometimes, even with the best intentions, both coaches and parents, they add to it, and almost, I would love to assume that almost always it's unintentional, of course. Right. But they are adding to it. And so, sometimes we have parents that just, every single time the kid's up, they're up there with the video camera, now there's times for that to be done. Right. So at 17, so my older team, like, I'm encouraging them to do that, because, like, look, we got to get game video. You got to send that to college coaches, whatever, because they want to play in school. Yeah. But I see this at 13.
I've seen it younger
12,
than that. 9, 10.
9, video in every single at bat. And, the kid's already stressed out because they're out there, they're facing a pitcher that they don't know, right? So it's a stranger. This is a real game. There's a real umpire. The umpire is judging him on his view of the strike zone, right? His team's there. He wants to succeed for his team. He doesn't want to let his team down. He wants their approval. He wants the approval of the coach. He wants the attaboy from me or Ryan or whoever's there. All these things. And now that he also has to perform for dad behind the backstop with the cameras, again, shirt's not attended that. That's dad saying, hey, I want to capture this moment. This is my kid. I want to remember these moments. He's not going to be 12 again. I get it. But I would just suggest make sure we're being aware of how that's being received on the other end. I think that's important.
Gotcha.
Yeah.
All right.
Ryan?
What's next?
All right. Hold on. I got to fix my pen just blew up here. Actually.
Technical difficulties.
My pen.
Are we doing the "Why would you do that" segment? Is that next?
No, we got a question.
Oh, the question.
I like Kev still doesn't know the order.
That's I know, terrible. I forgot about the question.
Yeah. So, all right. So this is sort of a big question. I'm going to go back and sort of read it. Now there's one that we're going to kind of pluck out of this. Okay. Now this came from a softball moms group. Okay. And basically what it is there was a situation there where I'll just read you the quote. Last night to one of the bigger girls, he says, and they're talking about a coach, you'll have to make up your softball knowledge. You'll have to make up with your softball knowledge because your physique needs a lot of work. He said this in front of all the other girls. Okay, the wife of this coach apparently is league president, so I don't have anyone to complain to. All right, so whatever. The rest is just me. But the question was, how do you handle a situation where there's a disconnect? Coach, player, parent, family, whatever. And sometimes it's not just coach. Sometimes it's the whole program's philosophy, etc. The simple and easy answer to that is obviously find a new program. Yeah. But the deeper question is, like, how do you do that, right? I mean, how do you not end up in that same situation again? And we talked a little bit about this before, where we talked about, like, how do you pick a program? This is why it's so important. So I love this question because it gives us an example, Kevin, of like what happens if you don't ask those questions, if you don't do the interviewing, etc.
Right.
And ties into what we just talked about and what Jeff talked about last week was sometimes kids are going to a program for the status of it. They're not even looking at anything else. They're not looking at, are these the right developmental coaches? Are they the right temperament for my kid? Because at the end of the day, Kev, you know this, and Ryan, you know this, coaching, especially in baseball and softball, this isn't football. We don't have to be chess players and master X's and O's necessarily. We do this part of that, but it's not like football. Our main thing, I think, to be a very successful baseball softball coach is you're almost like a pseudo psychologist, like a mini psychiatrist, right? Because you have to understand how your player, what makes your players tick, right?
Communication is huge too.
Huge.
Being able to communicate. Yep.
Being able to communicate. And that's the thing. So I might communicate like with some kid, it might be appropriate for me to get on his ass a little bit and say, hey, come on, dude, what's going on? I snap out, because some kids, that's how they get motivated. And that's what makes them tick. Yep. Other kids, you have to be nothing but positive. And just remind them about how good they are, sometimes, and they don't give them credit for themselves. And other kids, it's
you got to joke with a little bit,
right? You got to be really lighthearted, right? Yeah. I mean, there's all different ways you can handle it, and not every kid's can't handle it in a cookie cutter fashion, right? That's really important. So anyway, I think going to find out, like interviewing these programs, interviewing the coaches, and it really comes down to, I think if you interview the program directors, right, or the owners of the program directors, you're going to get a good idea because they're going to hire coaches that fall in line with their theory and how they want things coached. And if you get a coach that doesn't in a program like that, you can address it with the program and they're probably going to handle that coach for you. But you have to say something. You have to say it, because otherwise the program's not going to know. The program's not going to know, and if they don't know, how are they supposed to be able to address something? They've got several coaches in their employ. So, if you address it, I know if someone came to me with something like that, I would want to address it like lickety split. But, Ryan, I don't know if you have anything to add here, or Kevin, but.
I mean, I was going to say too, oftentimes, depending on the size of the program, right? Like our program here, we have 8 baseball teams, we have 2 softball teams, right? We're, I don't know, medium to larger size program, depending on how you look at things. There's programs out there that have 2 or 3 teams. There's programs out there that have 20 teams, right? Mm-hmm. So the size of the organization also can play a part in how disconnected some of the stuff is. So if it's a bigger organization that has, 18, 20 teams, yeah, the program director, the owner, they might not know about these little things that happen. They might be more hands off. So, those are the ones that you really need to make sure and make a point to have that conversation with. Otherwise, it'll just go by the wayside and nothing will ever be done to address it, right? I like to think that our program, again, being, I'll call it medium sized, right? I like to feel that Mike and I both have a pretty firm grasp on what's going on within each of our teams, right? We know some of the nuances, that are taking place. We know some of the conversations that are happening with, between parents and coaches and players and things like that. So it's as Mike was saying, and as part of the interview process and what you're looking for, it's really got to be something that you kind of address too. And, it's how the communication takes place. What's the chain of command, from, hey, do I email my coach about this? Do I email the program director, the owner, whatever the case is.
Well, I'll say one more thing about that too. And I think one of the things to look for too is how is the program brand new? Has it been around for a while? And the reason I bring that up is because, well, 2 things. If it's been around for a while, then people obviously like something that you're doing, right? That's number one. But the other thing is that once a program gets about 8 years old ish, right? Maybe roundabouts. The coaches in that program, and this is the same for ours, are former players. And so if we have former players now, it doesn't mean that you can't have a coach that doesn't connect with a player, but you're probably going to at least get not probably you are going to get coaches that understand the philosophy of that program, understand the approach of that program, how they want things to be handled, etc. That said, there are times we're just not going to disconnect. Every program isn't for everybody, right? And so it's important that you find the one. And sometimes, and the last thing I'll say is the goals must be aligned. With us, all we care is about development. We don't care about winning 12U games. We don't care about what division our teams are in. Really, we don't care about that. We want our kids to learn, to develop, and now we've actually shown that to work. We've proven that model. And so by the time they get to 16, when winning does actually start to matter, they're doing that, right? So if you're looking for a program that wants to be on the ultimate top team at 13 and going chasing trophies at 13, there's nothing wrong with that. That's just not us. That's just not us. So make sure that the philosophies align. So, Kevin, you have anything to add on that?
No, even when I take a new client, not necessarily on the physical therapy end, if someone's hurt, they're gonna but someone on the sports training end, I make sure I take them in, we do a little sit down, and our goals, we have to be aligned. If not, it's never going to work. You can't. Right. You can't force someone to do something that they don't want to do or they don't believe in, and vice versa. It goes both ways. And you've got to be able to have common ground to communicate. That's the simplicity of it.
That's huge. Yep, absolutely. All right. So before we move on to we have a kind of a special. Why would you do that? We have a Dr. Kevin McGovern focused. Why would you do that? So we've been talking about this. So we do the why would you do that, and we love them. And the last one was a fun one, and we got to kind of laugh and joke. And Ryan got mad at us because we were kind of making fun. But we've been talking about.
I was trying to play Switzerland in this. I was trying to not. Yeah.
We were making fun of the individuals. We were making fun of the fact that the drill that they were doing was going to help nothing, related to how they were swinging. But anyway, but we want to make sure that, we want to offer some sort of solutions, and we want to show you, talk about the why would you do that, and then sort of like what you would do, like, you would do that, ! Right? So Kevin is going to take it away here in a second, but we're going to break down. We're actually going to mechanically break this down through some video analysis. This is how we work with athletes, and this is how Kevin works with his athletes. And we'll show you why it is that we do what we do and the things that we see, and then what we want to do to be able to correct it. And then of course, the silver lining and all. how good this kid could be, right? So Kevin, take it on away.
And real quick before you jump into it, I'll
Kevin.
say this. Yeah, I know that. Before, for the people that are listening out there on podcasts and aren't watching the live stream or don't come back and watch us on video, I don't blame you. I wouldn't want to look at our faces either, but this is one where you should absolutely check the video out, even for just, the 5 minutes we're talking about this, because what Kevin's about to show is real cool.
We can make this a clip of its own.
Yeah, absolutely. So I have a high school pitcher here who is 6'4", 6'5", came to me with some elbow pain. So this is one of our first, kind of my video analysis of his, he's uncorrected essentially at this point. So most of my philosophy is we want the body to do and move the way the body moves best. Okay, and that's kind of what I call linearly, if that's a word, meaning things are push, pull, rotate. We don't want too many multi-planar movements, and I'm going to show this. So, here he is up, in a very good posture. But as soon now as he begins to go home, a few things happen immediately. Number one, we have spine tilt, okay? And we have this cool little highlighter thing here. I want you to just take a look at this knee. And let's pretend he's not a baseball pitcher, but he just came down from a rebound, because it's the same move, okay? So instead of that knee bending like a hinge back and forth, our hip is rotated, and we have put a tremendous amount of force right there on our medial compartment, you will say, which is putting stress on our meniscus and our ACL and all that kind of stuff. So his first move, essentially, he's really violating. He's not going straight up and down. He's tilting. He's leaning forward, and all of this is a teach, right? He's been taught that. He's been taught the spine tilt. He's been taught to kick out his left butt cheek, because he has not been taught to do a proper up and down. Whoops, not that one. A proper up and down squat, right? Because that's essentially what this was. We want him to move straight up and down and not forward to home plate, right? So there's been a lot of talk about, where the arm needs to be when the front foot hits the ground, okay? So as that hits the ground, I'm going to tell you that it's not here, okay? Mm-hmm. So we can look at his belly button being somewhere here and pointing over there as opposed to home plate. Okay.
So he's at front foot strike. Just to interject, just for people listening.
Yep. Front foot strike. His back leg is anchored to the ground. Okay, and he's in. And when I teach any sort of athleticism, every movement needs to be athletic, meaning that from this position, at the snap of a finger or the next frame, can he do another athletic move without having to do some sort of preparatory move? And the answer to that question is no. This move here, this position, does not emulate or mimic any sport, okay? Football, basketball, tennis. This is in a very unathletic position at this point. We have talked in previous conversations about the upper traps. You can see them. I'll completely shrugged. Okay, this elbow pointed here towards home plate. That is a teach. There's absolutely no reason for that other than to, for we're flying. And I'm not making fun of this child. This is just stuff that has been taught or seen on social media that really does not make kinesiological sense. So the end game here is I try to tell kids, okay, we're doing something very powerful, right? We're going to take this 5-ounce baseball and throw it to home plate. So it should be something of a power move when we do that. So I always tell kids, let's envision that there's a block of ice or a table or something that when you let the ball go, you have to smash it, because if you're throwing with full power, as soon as you let the ball go, 3 inches below that is this table that you should be able to smash with authority. So as
like
we
get Danny LaRusso.
Yes, exactly like the Karate Kid. So as we begin to go frame by frame, you'll see that some of this gets worse, right? Our foot's still anchored to the ground. Our belly button still not turned towards home plate. And now that arm is way behind us. And what some people, I don't know if we've...
Doesn't exist, Kevin.
It doesn't exist, but, when... this all came about because what's that guy's name now for the Yankees? What's his name?
Italian.
Italian, right? He has been taught that when that left foot hits the ground, his arm should already be in the throwing position. I 1,000% agree. That would be what the throwing position would be if we're looking at a clock. It should be, at 12 o'clock or straight up or somewhere heading towards a gravity assisted position, meaning that gravity is helping that arm go down, as opposed to here we still have to go up to go down, and this arm in this position is late.
And that is the window of injury, correct?
Absolutely.
Right.
Absolutely. So now as getting the foot completely flat to the ground and now beginning to rotate, you will just see something that we just don't like. Okay. Finally, now the foot has come up about an inch, but now this arm is here instead of here. Mm-hmm. So we're going to just clear everything out here, and we're going to
put... He's at layback way late.
He's way back. So now let's put our Danny LaRusso block of ice here, right? Or whatever. We're going to smash this, right? Because, this is hip height, right? We should be able to smash this. It should look aggressive. And you're going to see that it's not even it's a slap. There's no power. His whole trunk comes in way late.
Still behind his front leg, even
still behind him. So what does this? So from my standpoint, immediately we've got a danger zone here. Okay, this is elbow, an elbow injury, waiting to happen. But more importantly, we're losing, I don't know, 10 miles an hour. So I mean, if this is 60 feet, right? He's very long. He's probably releasing this ball here. This is like kind of, I said, you roll this Chapman. Why does 101 get hit? Because it's really not 101, because it's 101 from, 58 feet. If his arm was out here, right? Now it's 101 from, 49 feet, right? And that's the definition of a heavy ball. The ball didn't get heavy on the way there. Heavy's an optical illusion, meaning that the eye can't pick things up that are right at you, right? So when we're letting the ball go closer to home plate, 85 becomes 92, or oh wow, that got on me. That's heavy. That got on me quicker. Yeah, because he's releasing it closer to home plate,
and so it has less time to lose velocity.
That's correct.
So you'll see that on a radar gun. You'll see the top peak radar, the peak velocity, and then the end, the final velocity. And the guys that have the smaller number between the two are the ones that get fully extended and release the ball further out in front.
So that's what's wrong. What we do to correct this. I'd have him be linear here. That when his leg is even coming up from here, as his leg begins to lift, that he begins to sink down, just like loading and hitting, straight down, and that he stays there as that leg comes down and out. So it gets to a position where when his leg is out, his butt is really back here, his leg is here, his torso is here. Just like an extreme load of hitting. And then it's essentially like we have talked about before, walking. He's just turning that trunk and letting everything happen. And you will see an immediate, because his finish is great. It's just late. It's late.
Yep. Right.
And that lateness is what, we want to be late, and I'm sure you guys teach. We want to keep the bat back and turn those hips, or we want to keep the golf club back. And these guys are watching the Masters are literally finished swinging, and they still have the club in the cocked position. Right, because the club or the bat is delivering the force. We can't do that with an elbow because an elbow isn't an aluminum bat or a graphite golf club. All the force goes through that elbow. And in my opinion, the lag, lateness, whatever you want to call, or for simple, we cannot throw up to throw down. We can't do it. And if you accelerate up the hill, down the hill, you're too late. You must accelerate the arm down the hill. And with him, it's a couple simple things. Like I said, we have to be linear, and we've got to unearth that back leg. There is no reason in the world that back leg is in contact with the ground right now. None. Zero. Zip. But yet some people actually teach that, and that's insane.
Well, it's two things. Number one, I want to first point out that So Talion, and by the way, I know you sent the article to me, but they talk about how since he's had now 2 injuries, he used to be a really long pitcher,
Very
long
long.
back,
Yep.
and they've now since shortened him up. And so we'll keep an eye on that because that's something that obviously we would recommend to do, especially coming off of an injury like that. But to prevent that injury, even in the beginning, want to have that arm path, as Kevin talked about, not leaving. It's almost like the train's leaving the station and you're still back there chasing after it.
That's
you're not gonna win that. The train's gonna win.
I mean, it's stepping in the bucket, right? Remember that term? It's like if you're hitting all the weights forward and
that's right.
You've got nothing back there.
You got nothing to rotate off the backside with at all. So, so that's the first thing. Second thing is I find this really interesting is in softball, Kevin, and I don't know if it's different, but in softball, you can't leave the ground with your back foot. It's illegal.
Yeah, I have no idea why that is.
Me either. It makes no sense to me. I mean, other than I think Jason tried to explain it to me. Our super fan Jason tried to explain it. Said that it's an advantage because you're jumping at. But it's not an advantage if you're. First of all, if everyone can do it, how is it an advantage?
Right.
What
I mean, to me, if you're trying to go forward and something is back, you're causing torque to stop you, causing friction. I mean, basically alone, you're causing friction, right? It's like, I mean, I'm not sure why in softball this, but I know, I mean, there's obviously no rule in baseball, but leaving that leg and teaching that. I saw someone teaching, yes, when we dig the groove with our toe, we want it to be in this. What? Are you crazy? And then here it is, right? And just put this out here. So anyone who's teaching anything, let's put the block out here. You should be smashing this, not slapping it. Okay, you're slapping it because that leg is being held back. And if the goal is to be here and just kind of slap, great. That's teach that. But if your goal is to be powerful here and smash that block as soon as you release, as soon as you release that ball, you should have that power. Then leaving that leg back is wrong.
Love it. Hey, one thing, and we saw a little bit here with this video. Hip to shoulder separation was like this. It was all that was talked about going back probably about 4 or 5 years.
Yep.
It sort of things quieted down about it, and now it's come roaring back.
Yep.
Right. So now we can still have hip to shoulder separation without a long arm path, right?
I think hip to shoulder separation. I think those terms are dangerous. They're dangerous. Yeah. Hip to shoulder separation means exactly this: arm way behind, hip going this way. No, we want that to. I mean, this is where the power is. That turn right there, right? And if you can imagine, if that front leg is helping the turn rather than being a sandbag, the power is going to be down. So to me, it's the wrong target to talk about where power is being generated, because we can have hip to shoulder separation in hitting in golf because the club and the bat are doing the work, right? A thing that doesn't snap, right? To me, once that front foot hits the ground, everything else has got to be in sequence, and it's got to be straight through. And again, if the idea is power, put a block of ice there. If you can't break it, something's wrong.
So by that standard, because sequence, right? So if the midsection, like the hips and lower trunk, are turning first, there will be a little bit of a disconnect between the hip and the shoulder as it moves in sequence, right? But
correct.
To try to get all this extra is bad, right? Exactly.
Right. You want to hold on to the ball for as long as possible until that arm is in a gravity assisted position, and then you can do whatever you want. You can. I mean, because then your gravity's the killer here. Gravity is, or that lag, whatever you want to call it, lateness, against anti-gravity position, whatever you want to call it. It's, I mean, just someone just look at that, and if you think that looks good on your elbow, then the torque is all here. I mean, you can see it.
Well, proof's in the pudding. This pitcher has what kind of pain?
Right medial elbow pain.
There you go. Right. So,
and now just as So the pain is pretty much gone. His velocity has gone up about 4 to 6 miles an hour, only getting him to go straight up and down, out, and rotate. Very simple things, getting him back to, if we looked at him now, he would smash that block of ice like there's no tomorrow.
Good stuff. All right.
Thanks, guys.
All right. I think that's the end of our show. It is 12:29.
That's it. Wow, it went by quick.
It did go by quickly.
You want to do a quick call back to the beginning of the episode and lay out a prediction for who's going to wear the green jacket on Sunday?
Well, I'm in a pool. I'm in a knockout pool. I have. I didn't get the first pick. Justin Thomas was the first pick. I mean, he's the guy I think that's gonna win this. But I have John Rahm, I have Rory, and I have Patrick Cantlay. All play Augusta very well. Hopefully, if they let Rory play 3 rounds instead of 4, he may have 3 green jackets, but they do have to play 4 rounds. But we'll see. My sentimental pick was Lee Westwood, but right now he's +4 sitting on the 8th hole, so he's not doing so well. Yeah. But I mean, it's everything with Augusta starts on Saturday. So if you make it to Saturday, it goes from there.
So you think Thomas is wearing it?
I think that would be. I wouldn't bet against him. We'll put it like that.
Yeah, I'll go with one of the second favorites there. I'm taking Colin Morikawa.
Another good pick. I believe he's already under par, so that's a very good pick as well.
Put me down for Curtis Strange.
Curtis Strange is in the booth. He's in the booth.
Oh, is he?
He's in it. He's on ESPN. Yes.
Good for him.
Well, Curtis. Well,
the last time I watched golf.
Considering we're in Massachusetts, Curtis Strange won a U.S. Open here, back-to-back U.S. Opens. I believe
Brookline?
It was 1987, and I believe it's coming back to Brookline next year.
Next year.
So wait a minute,
yeah,
wasn't the one 19 like 90, 91? That range?
So no, there was I think it was 87. No, what you're thinking of is the Ryder Cup was here.
Oh, that's right. That's
the
right.
Ryder Cup was here. And I believe that was 97.
So I went to that. I actually went to
I
that.
did too. Yeah, it was crazy. That's when we had the huge comeback on the last day. So, all right, guys. Well, good show. Again, we're here each and every week. You can find us on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, radio.com, and every other platform known to man.
Yep.
And all right. Well, have a good week.